We're back on the record. Plaintiff's next witness? I mean defendants.
I call the defendant Nicole Clemens.
How many more witnesses on your side?
This is it.
Okay, how many do you have on your side?
Same two.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nicole. How are you?
Good, how are you?
All right. A few questions I have for you. What do you currently live?
San Pedro, California.
And who lives with you?
His grandmother and my noble Jules, and 2 weeks of the month is Robert.
And Noble, how old is Noble?
11.
Noble's a boy.
Yes.
And Jules is how old?
9.
And and visiting for every 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off is your son as well of this proceeding, Robert.
Correct.
Can you tell the court about your two children?
They play gymnastics. They play a lot of sports. Gymnastics they both do. My son just got done with football, and they both play soccer currently. They go to school during the week, and after school they go to the Boys and Girls Club until 6 o'clock p.m., where they play their sports and they have their games. And they're straight A students there.
What kind of grades does Noble receive?
He has straight A's right now.
And what about Jules?
She has A's and B's.
And can you describe their relationship with Robert?
They all love each other. They get along really well. My youngest Robert, he thinks that Noble it's like his idol to him.
And how does Robert get along with Jules?
They get along. They all play together. They all look out for each other. They go to school together. They get along really well.
They love one another and
Right. They constantly play together. They look out for each other. Noble and Jules fight a little bit.
and Robert right now he's enrolled in school. Where's he enrolled in school?
Barton Hill Elementary School.
And where is that?
2 blocks from our house in San Pedro.
And what grade is he in?
He's in kindergarten. He's in TK.
In pre-K?
Yeah. It's
Or you spell TK or?
TK. That's what they call it.
Okay. And what's that program that he's involved in?
It's when they're, because of California law, when they're 5, they have to go to school. And it just means that he's a little bit young and he'll have to go to kindergarten again next year.
Well, who's his teacher in his class?
Miss Aguilar.
And what types of things is he learning in school right now?
He's learning his alphabet. He learned how to write his name. He's learning numbers. They do math, just counting numbers and recognizing them. What a 1 looks like, what a 2 looks like.
I'll ask you the same question. What numbers can you count up to?
He can count up to 20. Then he starts faltering. He recognizes 1, 2, 3. Has a problem with 5, and he can recognize 8.
And what about the alphabet? What letters is he having a hard time with?
He can write and recognize R and O. Mostly the letters in his name. There's J, Z, and X he's good at, and maybe I.
And so what types of things are you doing to work with him to help him learn his numbers and the alphabet?
We do his homework, and we made flashcards the other day. We made our own flashcards so he can help recognize the numbers better.
And how long has he been writing his name for?
Miss Aguilar and I helped him with that. Maybe his first month of school, he was kind of leery on doing it. It was the second month of school, so October.
And so, and he can write his last name as well, or is he having a hard time with his last name?
No, he can't write his last name. He was having a problem holding the pencil, so we had to work with him on that.
And how's that coming along?
He's better at it now.
And how does he get along with the other kids in school?
At first, the whole 2 week on and 2 week off thing was kind of hard, but now he's totally comfortable coming back into the classroom after being gone for 2 weeks, and he plays with them, and Miss Aguilar actually really, really enjoys him, and would like to see him in a class still.
And does he have friends at school?
Yes, he does.
Or what are his friends' names?
There's Ricky. That's the only actually one that he buddies up with.
And tell me, we've talked about a couple different things. The health of Robert, how is he doing health-wise?
He's healthy.
We talked about a dental appointment. Do you recall that dental appointment?
Right, I made a dental appointment for him after his father discussed with me. He has two teeth in the front on the right, and I made an appointment. And by the time he came back to me the following 2 weeks, it was already taken out. His tooth, both teeth. Sorry.
And so were you aware that he had done that or no?
We had talked about, we had both discussed looking into it and getting a second opinion, but he didn't wait for my opinion. It was already gone when he came back.
And tell me about if there's been any other doctor, well, what was the last time that Robert saw a doctor?
When he got his 5-year-old shots. And I also called Robert about his 5-year-old shots because I know they needed them for school, first of all, and second of all, I know you need 5-year-old shots. I have other kids. And I called to ask him to see, or to tell him I was scheduling an appointment, and he had said he had gotten them before he was 5.
And so, other than the shots, have you taken the doctor for anything else?
Oh, I took him to the emergency room not too long ago. He had I thought he had a urinary tract infection, but he didn't. Actually, he was fine.
And each time did you share that information with his father?
Yes, I did.
And what about the information regarding the school that your son's in? Have you shared that information with his father?
Yes, I do.
Just kind of go back in time a little bit. There was, this initial action was filed back in, what was it, 2010, in June of 2010, do you recall that?
July.
July of 2010, thank you. And where were you residing at that period of time?
I had just moved out and was getting my own apartment
Where did you move out of?
out of Robert's house, 7360 Virio Drive.
Is that Antoinette's house?
Yes.
And who was living at the house when you moved out?
When I moved out, it was me, my 3 children, and it was me and my 3 children.
No, but who was living in Antoinette's house?
Oh, and Antoinette and Robert, sorry, and her husband.
And then after you moved out, who moved into the house?
Wayne Willard moved in, and directly after.
There's no foundation for this. She wasn't living there. She can't testify as to who moved in after she left.
I should.
I'll go through the thing. Judge, I can do it one way. I can ask leading questions on a lot of this foundational stuff, or just hit it, or if he wants to object every time on foundation, I'll go back and do it.
I
Whatever's
can't,
quickest.
I don't see that, first of all, that it's relevant, but there's no way, unless, that she can testify outside of hearsay of what occurred in that house after she moved out. It's impossible.
I'll ask a question as well.
What house are we talking about now?
We're talking about Antoinette's house, and that's the house where the plaintiff resides. So my question is that after that period of time, you guys worked out, well, after you filed your action in July of 2010, there was a period of time after that in which you were able to work out a custodial timeshare with the plaintiff, is that true?
No, the order was made July. We've gone to mediation before. It didn't work out. My baby was actually, when we broke up, I didn't see my son for it was 19 days because Robert had taken him and hidden him at another house.
Your Honor, objection. This is all before the previous order. This has been litigated and done and is not relevant to this motion.
Okay, sustained.
Nicole, when you moved out of the house, there was a custodial schedule that was put together?
Right, 3.5 days, 3.5 days.
Sorry, and I'm asking questions, I'll get to other stuff.
Okay.
And where did you do the exchanges?
I was ordered to go pick him up from the house, from Robert's house.
So we went over to the house, but did you happen to notice with the living arrangements who was at the house?
Yes.
And who was at the house?
Wayne was over there. Rebecca was over there. His dad, his mom, and Robert.
Then after that period of time, through 2010, His father passed away,
I think it was 2011.
and after that period of time when his father passed away, when you were dropping off and doing exchanges, who else was staying there at the house?
2011, Rebecca, Wayne was already, I think, in prison. Robert, Antoinette, my son periodically, the 3.5 days, and Crystal Woolard moved in for approximately 2 weeks.
Okay. And so what did you learn when you were doing the exchanges, and during those 2 weeks, what happened? What did you learn?
What did I learn?
Yeah, about Crystal. Did she stay at the house? Was she there with her child?
Oh, I never saw her there with with the child. I saw her there twice. I never saw her there with the child. I guess I didn't really go in the house too much after that. After I didn't live there anymore.
And did you learn from the plaintiff what?
I
Did
learned
you
from
learn-
Robert that the baby had been taken away by CPS and that all her stuff had been
Objection, hearsay.
put out on the right back patio. Sorry,
Who told you that?
Robert did.
And Robert's the plaintiff.
Right.
It's hearsay.
I'm gonna permit it. I don't know if it's off for the truth of the matter or that just Robert told her that.
Okay, Robert, what else did he tell you in regards to Crystal and her 2 kids?
That the first kid was taken away. The first kid was taken away by CPS because the baby had fallen downstairs supposedly, and had bruises all over him. And actually, they waited 3 days to take the baby to the hospital. And Rebecca's actually the one that went over there and finally made him take the baby to the hospital. She wasn't. I guess after that, she had another baby with the same guy, and that meant that she was bringing him around the first baby, and that they took both of those kids away from her.
And while she was living at Antoinette's house?
The first baby was already taken away from her.
So,
The second one, right? She named it after his dad and everything, and then I guess she had lied about that, and yes, the baby was taken away while she was staying over there, and then she no longer stayed there.
there's been testimony today regarding the custodial timeshare after the order went in. Can you tell the court, did you or did you not exercise your visitation?
I always exercise my visitation.
And what was the visitation schedule which was followed after the order went into place back in 2010?
3.5 days on and 3.5 days off. It started Sunday at 2:00 p.m. and it ended Thursday morning when I took my son to school.
Was there any time that ever changed?
Occasionally here and there they would try to not let me see the baby, and his mom would lock the back door, and I'd have to call the police, and all they give you is a police contact card, and they tell you basically there's nothing they can do. It's a civil matter.
How many, this one instance you described, you had a problem, there was a problem picking up your son? Were you able to eventually pick up your son?
All the time. Yes, I was. That same day, I would wait there for hours, even though she said she'd call the police on me for trespassing, until I got my son.
So, how often would that occur?
Randomly, once a month, once every 2 months. I mean, it was really random when she felt like it.
Now, I believe that Robert was very clear in his testimony that in 2010, you didn't see your son but once a week. Is that a true statement?
No, not at all.
What about in 2011?
No, not at all. I saw my son 3.5 days on and 3.5 days off until 2012 when I moved back home to California.
Yeah. Well, in 2010, did Robert take care of Jules and Noble?
No, he didn't.
In 2011, did he take care of Jules or Noble for you?
No,
2012,
no,
2013,
no,
2014.
no.
You were arrested in 2011?
Yes.
Where were you arrested?
I was arrested on Sahara at my job.
Where were you working?
I was working at Yokoyama.
Working, sir, for what?
Yokoyama.
How do you spell that?
YOKI, and then A, and then MA. There's
Okay.
spaces in between. Sorry.
What is that, what was that place?
It was a medical marijuana dispensary.
Did you, did you own the medical marijuana dispensary?
No.
Did you know the owners of there before you had worked there?
No, I applied with a regular job application.
How did you find out about the job?
Paul Wilkes.
And so, when you started to work there, were you, can you tell the court what happened after you worked there? How long did you work there for?
2 months. I was paid $13 an hour, and it got raided, and they said that it was illegal to do what we were doing. My boss had lied to me and told me that he was an ex-FBI agent, that they even gave us a business license. The fire department came in, inspected the place, and it was okay. And then all of a sudden, 2 Army tanks came in the parking lot, and they said they raided the place.
After that, you hired an attorney, or you were,
Yes, I did.
and then after you hired an attorney, did you, I guess the term we've talked about today is did you go to a trial, or was there a plea deal which was entered?
I was indicted by the grand jury, and I did a plea bargain. I'm sorry.
All right, tell the court what the terms of the plea deal is.
I pled no contest, and I'm on probation until next year. As long as I complete my probation and the conditions of my probation, they take it off my record like it never existed.
What's the term?
Adjudicated deferred sentence.
Is that called a plea in abeyance? Was that a plea in abeyance?
An adjudicated deferred sentence, yes.
Would you like to take a break anyway?
No, I just missed your last question. No, what was your last question?
Oh, is that a plea in abeyance? That was,
Okay.
it was the legal art term. And when is that scheduled to be finished?
November 4th of 2015.
And what happens after November 4th of 2015?
It gets taken off my record. It's not on my record as it is, but it gets removed, and I don't get charged with a felony.
So everything's dismissed and nothing?
Right. That's because I haven't been in trouble before.
Now, there was testimony today, and Robert was pretty adamant when he said that you had gone down to California in June of 2013, and you had gone down to California and you picked up a load of drugs or something.
No.
Did you pick up a load of drugs, like he said, in June of 2013?
No, I came to visit my son for a week and stayed at his house.
Well, then we could, did you
Okay.
go down to California and pick up a
No,
load
I
of
didn't.
drugs? Have you ever picked up a load of drugs down in California?
No.
You ever brought drugs for Robert to use?
No.
You ever said that you've got to do drugs?
No.
Did you ever have a plan to set up and get drugs and put them in his presence, so to trick him into using drugs?
No.
Did you want him to use drugs and
No.
There came a period of time which you went down to California. When was that?
I'm sorry.
When did you move to California?
I moved to California December 2012.
And where did you move to in December 2012 in California?
I moved down to Redondo Beach.
And who did you move down there with?
I brought my daughter with me.
And what did you do once you got there?
My daughter, she stayed at at her father's house, and then I stayed with my mom, and I go over there to see them, and they come over to visit me.
Right, so did you set it up for your daughter to get in school in
Correct.
California?
Yes, we took her out of the school she was in Las Vegas, and then she was enrolled. I enrolled her in Barton Hill.
Okay, and what about your son? Not the son of this
So
procedure?
my
Noble.
older son, he had moved down 6 months prior.
Okay, so Noble is down there, so you're with Noble, at that period of time you're staying with Noble, and when did it come to be that you would stay with Noble and with Jules?
Oh, after their father went to jail.
And when did he go to jail?
September 15th of 2014.
And you know what, there was a thing about their father going to jail. There was a comment, that he went to jail, and he was arrested in a car with you and 4 other people.
No.
Can you tell the court what happened when the father of Jules and Noble went to jail?
what happened.
That you know,
I found out from Facebook, actually from his daughter on Facebook, but the kids were, they were asleep at the house and I was at my mother's house.
So nobody was with him when it occurred?
No.
You weren't with him?
No,
And he's also made the comment, he says that you do drugs. Do you
No.
do drugs?
no.
Just for clarification, Noble and Jewel, they have one dad? That's
Yes,
one-
they have the same father.
And that's the one we're talking about, they got arrested in
Yes.
September of this year?
Yes.
Okay.
This year or last, I think it was last year.
Okay, he got arrested, I'm sorry, he was fighting his case. He got bailed out and then he went back to jail for the case, September 15th of this year.
Then after,
He fought it for a year.
after you stopped fighting, he went to jail, then after that occurred, did you move houses after that occurred?
Yes, I did.
And so you actually moved into his house
Correct, with his mother,
with his mother? And you're there?
to help
how are
take
things-
care of her.
How are things going?
They're going great.
Is there any problems or issues?
No,
The kids get along with everyone?
yes,
So that was September of this year?
yes.
Okay. Now, you're talking about the son, in this case here, is Robert, he was going to school, did he have to change schools in September, or
No,
that's when he started school?
yes,
Okay.
around the same time, yes.
So, in December of 2012, when you moved down to California with your daughter, and your son had been there for 6 months. Well, actually, why don't you just so we understand everything, maybe so we get the entire picture here.
Okay,
Your kids, the father of your kids, your two children, Jules and Noble, their father's name is Sammy?
yes, it is.
And then Robert actually discussed this, is that when you guys came out to Nevada, meaning you and Robert came out to Nevada, you would file for an action to get primary custody of your two kids.
Correct,
And then had you gotten primary custody of your two kids?
yes, I did.
And when did you receive primary custody of the kids?
It was in 2008, August.
And so after that, was it,
No, I moved here August 2008, I'm sorry. It was right after that.
and after that period of time, you had sole physical custody with no visitation or just supervised?
Supervised visitation. I got sole physical and I got joint legal. Sorry.
Okay, so after that took place, somehow, why did you change around that? Because you had sole physical custody of the kids. Why did you allow Sammy back in the kids' lives?
Because he started making better decisions and not doing the things that I've known him to do his whole life.
So despite a court order that says that you have sole physical custody, you allowed him to come back in?
I reunited them with their dad, yes. I never wanted them to not see their dad.
So there became a period of time in which you developed some trust? You seen calls with the kids and their attitudes or anything when dad came back into their lives?
No, they enjoyed having their dad back into their life.
When you went down, moved to California, and you were living with Paul before you moved down to California.
Right,
And there was an incident with Paul where he was arrested and
Right.
convicted of domestic violence on you.
right,
And that was in December of 2012.
right.
So right after that, you moved down to California. And so did you have a conversation with your son's father about relocating down to California with the son that you guys had together?
Yes, yes, I wasn't allowed to take him with me, first of all, and then second of all, I told him when I was trying to make the decision what to do because I no longer had anywhere to stay. I told him I'm gonna come up and see my baby all the time. Just don't keep my baby from me because I've had prior experiences where they try to keep the baby from me.
So during that period of time, there become a period of time in which, what did you do actually from December of 2012 up until June of 2013?
I would come up and visit all the time. I was working on getting a job. I started an internet cafe down in California, and I was trying to establish a place to have all my children again.
All right, but how often or what would you do during that 6-month period of time? What would you do during that period of time in which to exercise any time with your son?
I would come up all the time from Nevada, to Nevada from California.
How often did you come up?
Maybe out of the month, maybe 12 days. I'd be up here 3 or 4 days at a time.
So in January of 2013, you came to Nevada. Where did you stay when you came to Nevada?
I would stay at Robert's house.
So did you come up in February of 2013?
Yes, I did.
And where did you stay?
At Robert's house.
In March of 2013?
I would stay at Robert's house.
April of 2013?
I would stay at Robert's house. He doesn't let the baby go far.
May of 2013?
Same thing.
Yep, in June of 2013.
I had just got done staying there a week, and when I left, I think on the 6th of June, I think on the 9th, he was arrested, around that time period. The 15th is when I called for Father's Day. I kept calling and calling. I had called previously, but they didn't answer, but I kept calling on Father's Day because I don't know, I just kept calling, and they always answer the phone. They always answer the phone, all the time. And so then, when they didn't answer the phone, I thought that was weird, and so I looked them up online.
So after that period of time, Father's Day 2013,
Yes.
when was the next time that you saw your son after that?
August 12th, I believe. It was in August when I was in front of this court.
Okay, so between that period of time and between June and August, what efforts, if any, did you take to see your son during that period of time?
I called the police. They went over to the house. They couldn't get anyone to answer the door. I called the detective of missing children. I went down to the main police station and had to file a report with them too. I called the head of the publishing and clearinghouse of missing children. I talked to him, and the detective, actually I gave him as much information as I knew, and I gave him different leads, like to where actually they were staying at, and where Antoinette was staying at, and my son, and that's where they found him. The detective found him
When did you find out that the detective had found your son?
on July 4th.
So how many days, was it about 19 days later again?
Yeah, something like that.
And after July,
It was a little bit more than that, but yeah.
okay, and so at that period of time, what did you learn?
I actually filed a missing persons report on both of them because I just thought it was weird. I couldn't get a hold of his mother either. What did I learn?
Yes.
They told me that they didn't know who to give the child back to because Antoinette had slandered, I guess, my whole persona, and had slandered my whole persona, and so they said that this CPS worker would call me, and they were taking my baby down to CPS, and
And so, did you speak to the folks over at CPS?
they called me on that Monday. It was, I think, a Saturday on July 4th. They called me on Monday. I didn't know they had called. The lady had left her name, so I called and her number. So I called back the next day.
Okay, and so what did you
She
find
told
out?
me that I had to be in court an hour and a half later.
There's some Kleenex right there.
I'm sorry.
There's some up there too.
Thank you. Okay. That I had to be in court an hour and a half later, and I was in California.
Okay, what efforts, if
Sorry
any,
about
did you take to go to be in court for an hour and a half later?
I tried to get an airplane ticket, and it just wasn't possible, and so I wasn't able to go to that the CPS court.
And what did you learn after that hearing?
I talked to the worker, and they said that I didn't want my son to sleep down there at the CPS office or wherever they sleep. I don't know, but they said that they would release my son to the grandma until the next court date.
So after that, did you file, was there a guardianship hearing which was filed by grandmother that you're aware of? Were you ever served with any papers?
I was never served with any papers, and actually I came down here several times to serve every kind of paper I could think of.
And that was the
Or
basis.
file, sorry.
You filed a motion to relocate with the children and you
That's what
primary
self-help
custody of your son.
do. Yeah. And that's where I had asked the self-help office if I had another court date, and if I had any court dates, and they said no, and then I went to Master Calendar just to make sure, and that's where they told me yes, and and that's where I showed up at the guardianship court. And, I never was served with any paperwork from that.
So, your testimony is that then after that period of time, there's orders which are entered, and you've exercised the visitation which is ordered by this court.
Right.
There was an issue regarding January of this year regarding a hearing which was set, which you canceled, you called to the court?
I called Linda, the clerk of the court, on the 23rd. I think we had court the 24th, and I told her, I asked her, would it be okay if I postponed our hearing? I really need to go to the hospital, but if it's not okay, I'll still make it. I'll just have to stop every 15 minutes to use the restroom on the way up. And she said, well, let me check with Judge Ochoa. So she went and checked with him, and it was said that it was okay. She said,
Let me just
okay.
get to the point. So, that hearing, you didn't go to that hearing, is that true?
right, that's true.
All right, then after that hearing, there was a pickup order which was issued by the court.
Right,
And somebody in California, I think Robert's daughter, picked up your son in California.
yes,
And at the return hearing, you guys worked out a different visitation plan after that. The 2 weeks on.
yes.
2
I was
weeks off.
supposed to have my 6 months with my son, and
But you didn't have the 6 months, even though you had the 6 months, what you did is you guys just agreed to do it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
right.
And up until
Yes, I
today's
was-
date. And so from that date up until today's date, you've always exercised your
Yes,
2 weeks
I
and
have.
2 weeks off. My question is that the allegations are here today is that you have not exercised any of your custodial time with your son until these proceedings have begun.
That's not true.
So,
I've always fought to see my son.
well, I mean, it just seems miraculously that, you know, up until now, you've completely changed according to Robert, and you've exercised visitation, custodial time with your son regularly since January or February of this year. It's his representation in this court that before that, you never saw your son, maybe once a year, 52 times for 3 years.
That's not true.
Just to be clear, up until the period of time from the 2010 order going into place, up until December of 2012, did you regularly exercise all of your visitation, all of your custodial time with your son?
Always. Except for 2012, I didn't follow it by the book when I moved down to California.
But when you didn't take your son down to California, did you?
No, I didn't.
You followed the court order,
I followed the court order.
and that's because Robert told you that he was going to make any exceptions.
Right.
And after that period of time, you exercised the visitation when you came up here, and you actually stayed at Robert's house.
Right.
And since that period of time, since January or since this court's been involved, has there ever been a period of time when Robert says that you did not make your son available for his phone contact on Tuesdays or Thursdays?
No.
Was there one time last month where there was a letter which was written regarding that?
Yes, and he spoke with me. He spoke with me both those days. I was a little bit late.
Hold
Okay,
on,
sorry.
I'm just gonna build up the story a little bit. I'm gonna ask
Okay.
you a couple foundational questions. A few weeks ago, you received a copy of a letter that was sent to my office. And after you received that letter, we wrote a letter in response.
Right.
And that letter basically says, complained that he missed a Tuesday visit, phone contact.
Right.
And can you tell the court what happened on that Tuesday in the response letter that we wrote?
What happened on that Tuesday? I had gymnastics class with my daughter. We went and signed her up. I had all 3 kids with me. I didn't expect her to do her first class that day. And my phone, I had left it charging at the house. So she started and did her first gymnastics class, and we waited for her down there. And so then I had to call him when I got back home.
What time did you call?
I called him, signed her up for 4, started at 5, probably around 6 o'clock, 6:30.
Okay, so after that occurred, did he tell you there was a problem because you couldn't talk to your son at 4 o'clock?
Well, he complained that day about me not being able to talk to him at 4 o'clock, and I apologized and sincerely. And I mean, I signed my daughter up for gymnastics, and I should have thought about it and had my phone charged, but it died, and so I needed to leave it at home.
Did you run into, was that intentional that you denied him the contact? on
No,
that
I
date?
don't ever try to keep my,
Other than that time, has he ever sent you a text, written you a letter, or has his attorney written you a letter that you denied phone contact?
just that one letter that you got.
Currently, you're doing the exchanges in Barstow,
Right.
and while you're doing the exchanges in Barstow, who are you meeting in Barstow?
Robert, his mom, the baby, sometimes Rebecca.
And who is driving the car when you arrive there? The other car?
Robert's always, I've seen him drive off in the car every time.
You ever seen Rebecca drive the car?
I don't usually see them drive up. I've seen them drive up maybe once because they're usually already there.
But when they leave, you see them leave and Robert,
Robert's always driving.
in January of 2014, when Robert's daughter was in California and picked up your son,
Yes.
where did she pick up your son?
She picked him up the following day at Savers. It's a store.
Okay. And so, tell me, where you've lived all the time, have you told Robert where you currently live?
Yes.
How many times have you told him where you've lived? How many times has he asked?
This, I told him when I think I was gonna notify the court, or I did notify the court about an address change. I told him when I moved, and his daughter's even picked him up my son from the house.
And actually, you responded to Discovery and it says where you currently live.
Yes.
And what do you believe is the best custodial timeshare for your son? When I say for your son, I mean your son with Robert,
My son with
with the plaintiff, I'm sorry.
what I believe the best custodial.
Yes.
I would like to have him during the school year, and maybe he could spend the summer with his dad.
Why do you believe that's the best interest of your son?
Because I can help him with his education. I want him to be with his brothers and sisters. I don't want to keep him from seeing his dad in the summer. You know, I think the summer would be a good time for him to spend time with him. Robert doesn't always watch my son, I know that. And his brother and sister look out for him a lot. And there's different activities that my son does miss out on because I can't sign him up because it's 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. But I would like to sign him up for.
Would you promote frequent associations with his father and with his mother and anybody else, his family?
Yes, I would. Right now, he visits his sister down in California.
There seems to be a lot of conflict or anger here unless,
Counselor, I think the other case is ready. I know you're almost done, but we'll stop here, that way there won't be a break between your direct and his cross.
okay,
You don't mind?
oh, that's fine.
You guys can stay in the courtroom just if you sit back.
I'm gonna go across this one.
You guys can stay and watch, because it might be a little mini trial, you might learn things.
Probably need that, Judge.
I could use a refresher.
Do you have a calendar for this other case? I mean, a calendar with the case names? I guess I have it here, yeah.